Many say over the last several decades we've gone from a manufacturing-based economy to a financial and service-based economy. What in general does that mean for the U.S. job market, given where we are as far as unemployment goes right now? And what kind of impact does that have on our country being able to be competitive in the global economy going forward? Any of you have any opinions on that?
I'm not an economist by trade. All due respect to Don, he'll forget more about this than I'll probably talk about in the next few minutes. But I think from an unemployment perspective, obviously, coming from southwestern Pennsylvania, steel country and coal mining, so I saw manufacturing. Most of my growing up years was a key to the economy back there, and that has changed, and I watched that change. So I think it has created some employment concerns, and it has helped add to unemployment, and it's helped add to what will be probably structurally a higher unemployment rate going forward. It's going to persist for a while. And the ability for us to create jobs at a level that would be required to bring GDP back up to kind of normal levels, which is probably 200,000 to 250,000 jobs a month, I would guess. You're probably not going to see that. It might be, in my opinion, more like 100,000. So it is a drag. I think the other thing, looking again at southwestern Pennsylvania, it has forced people to kind of grow up and think about the fact that the mill's not opening, and so they're retraining. That's taken a while. The other thing I watched and observed is I've watched our industry, the finance industry and service industry, obviously pays the light bills at my house, so I don't want to talk too pejoratively about it. But what we've done is we've taken the talent away from the manufacturing sector. Think about the typical engineer coming out of Ohio State University. 10, 15, 20 years ago, they were looking at companies like General Motors and steel, whatever. The manufacturing sector was a huge draw for them. The operations majors, huge draw. Well, the last 10, 15, 20 years, what are they looking at? They're looking at going to Wall Street, becoming a rocket scientist, engineer, building, toxic mortgage-backed securities in something called a hedge fund and making, $3-4 billion in a year. And I don't want to work for GM. I'm only going to make 75 grand there. I'm going to go to Wall Street. So we drained the talent. I think that's had a huge impact on the demographics of unemployment. Has it impacted our competitiveness of this country? Again, this collar's white, but it's blue underneath from southwestern Pennsylvania. I think it has. I think it has. And, the impact on the dollar, I think it's going to change and will change to some degree investor attitudes toward our country. Do you want to invest in an economy that's maybe less diversified? I don't know. Something that's raising taxes and debt and borrowing costs and everything else? I don't know. So I think it has had an impact.
Yeah, I'll just add that I think it's interesting to consider there's kind of two factors in terms of building wealth. There's a level of wealth, there's a distribution of wealth. And if you look at the level of wealth that our country as a whole generates, I think that the change from a manufacturing-based to service-based economy doesn't necessarily impact that. If we have competitive advantages, if we have barriers to entry in our services businesses, whether it's technology, whether it's entertainment, whether it's healthcare, whatever it may be, then if we have the barriers to entry and the competitive advantages, we can still generate a lot of wealth. But one thing that does change in a service-based economy is the distribution of wealth. It used to be that there was a lot of good manufacturing jobs at General Motors, and now a lot of those jobs are in other countries, and they've been replaced by jobs in healthcare and restaurants and things that are lower-paying jobs. And so I think getting back to kind of the original question about income tax rates earlier, just as an analysis standpoint, again, I'm not making a policy recommendation, but just from an analysis standpoint, I think that it may end up having impacts on broader policy issues because it used to be when the economy was not so global that if Steve Jobs came up with a good idea, he could make millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars on it. And now Steve Jobs comes up with a good idea and he has extremely low-paid people in China assemble it all for him, and he can make multiple billions of dollars. So that ability to make massive amounts of wealth is much higher, but the ability to sort of be in that, I don't know, you call it upper middle class type of manufacturing job, there's not as many opportunities for that, and that'll have some impact on the country.
So I'll focus on the last part of your question, which was the U.S. Ability to be competitive in global markets. So this is a question about creativity. Being competitive in the market really means who's going to be creative in the future? If you're looking 10 years down the road, where are the patents going to be and so on? There's a bit of good news, which is the U.S. is still the world leader in coming up with patents. Now, we may be doing this by having homegrown people do it, or we attract people that come here, but they're still doing the patenting of the ideas here. So that's good news. What about I thought about the administration's view on this. How would you grade this out? As a professor, we can go ahead and say yes, no, about the political things. So I'd sort of give a B on that. They did and part of the bailout money, they gave a lot of money to National Institutes of Health. So what is one of the areas where creativity is going to be very important in the future? Healthcare, medical things, pharmaceuticals. So, in there it's pretty much unlimited. You can sit there and say, boy, we can have better and better and better and better and better health. So they did well there. Another area where creativity probably could do well in the future is communication. I guess this is probably like health, a little bit harder to think about. So all the things that are going on now with the internet, it's sort of hard to imagine what's next, but it's probably, there are more things that are out there. On the other hand, I'm not, if you think about things where an administration would come out and say, we're favoring innovation, we want more to occur, we're going to lower capital gains tax rates. They're not saying any of that. So that's why I give them a mixed grade on this. There's some of the pluses that they've had, especially with how they targeted the bailout money, should be increasing U.S. creativity. A lot of professors are doing a lot of work on projects that have federal funding. Otherwise, I don't hear the cheerleading for it. It's not coming out. And finally, I have to mention that President Gee sent around an email to all faculty members today saying, third frontier in Ohio, good idea. You get to vote on it soon.